The last person you'd ever expect to kill a well-trained, well-armed member of the Chaos Insurgency is a 14-year-old girl with a kitchen knife. And yet, that's exactly what happened. He was standing guard outside one of the Insurgency compounds, looking through the red lenses of his tactical gas mask and shouldering an assault rifle. That's when the girl appeared behind him and drew the sharp edge of the blade across his neck, as though she was playing the violin. The cut was deep, almost all the way to the spinal cord, the kind of wound you can't stitch. The sentry fell to the ground, choking on his own blood, as the girl slinked into the building behind him, cleaning the edge of the blade on her skirt. What followed is nothing short of a massacre. The girl darted through the facility, taking different Chaos insurgents off guard. She sliced through the weak points in their armor to disable them, then killed them when they were unable to defend themselves. You wouldn't know that she'd never had a day of combat training in her life. Soon enough, alarms started going off around the facility. An unknown infiltrator had broken in and was somehow assassinating their personnel. With everyone on high alert, they had a much better chance of fighting back. But the girl still moved like a living blur between them. A couple of the insurgents managed to land shots on her, but nothing seemed to kill or even really slow her down. The colonel in charge of the base put himself in lockdown, hunkering down in his barricaded office, and yet she still appeared behind him and slid her kitchen knife in between his ribs from behind, severing his aorta and killing him. All the while, the survivors panicked and scrambled outside. A few hours later, the girl returned to a Foundation containment site with a dress covered in blood, where the Foundation medics treated her minor wounds. A researcher approached her, telling her that she'd done well, before giving her the order to forget the last 48 hours. She forgot the last 24, erasing the possibility that killing all those people would traumatize her. The instruction that she'd been given to do all this was, completely and utterly annihilate every single member of the Chaos Insurgency at a base with the following coordinates. Do not sustain even the most minor injuries in the process, most of which she did, but crucially, not all of it. Zena Cho is a teenage girl of Korean descent in the containment of the SCP Foundation. Nothing about her seems abnormal at first glance, but there are two exceedingly strange facts about her that you need to know. The first is that she is unable to ever deny a command given to her. She is physically incapable of disobeying, having a psychic resistance rating of 0%, the lowest the Foundation has ever seen. The second fact is that she's also physically incapable of completing a task that she's been given more than just over halfway. If you tell her to walk 50 feet, she'll walk 25 feet. If you ask her to kill 10 people, she'll kill 5. If you ask her to make a cake, she'll mix flour, milk, sugar, and eggs, and stop there. You get the idea. But the full extent of all this is so much stranger and more dangerous than you could possibly imagine. As is the case whenever an anomaly with a strangely specific set of abilities enters Foundation custody, a series of scientific tests are drawn up with the hope of studying the parameters of those abilities, and Zena Cho was no exception. While you would think that the inability to disobey a command and the inability to complete that command to its full extent is an almost mundane power, the Foundation soon discovered through the following tests that it was anything but. A researcher named Dr. Wensley was put in charge of the case. In the first test, she was given 3 wooden blocks, the kind that children often play with, and was given the instruction to pick them up. She was able to pick up 2 of the blocks, but was distressed when unable to pick up the third. She was then given the specific order to pick up the third block, but was only able to pick it up and lift it for a brief moment before dropping again. This just affirmed what the Foundation already knew. No order denied, no task completed. For the second test, she was given a United States quarter and the instruction to flip it so that it only landed on heads. She flipped the coin 24 times, and miraculously, each time it only ever landed on its side. Dr. Wensley made a note on this one saying, evidently, when given a pass-fail type of option, SCP-2599 is incapable of doing anything that would be perceived as failing the command. It will actively attempt to do something that is more correct than failing the command entirely. For the third test, she was made to listen to a piece of music, 24 Capricious by Paganini, specifically, and then commanded to play it perfectly. And for the first 5/6 of the performance, she did. But the recital completely fell apart after that. Dr. Wensley noted, "We tried this one multiple times, with different pieces and instruments. Every time, SCP-2599 successfully played a different percentage of the piece, concluding that there's no true pattern here." Then, predictably, for anything involving the SCP Foundation, the tests started getting dark and distressing. Yay! She was presented with a D-class and given a knife, then told to stab the man in the heart and kill him. While considerable stress registered on her face, she nonetheless gave the task the old college try. She did stab the D-class in the heart. However, her knife specifically pierced a necrotic region of the heart left by a prior heart attack, and didn't wound any healthy part of the heart. Naturally, due to the nature of Zena's anomalous abilities, the D-class survived the incident. To bring down the emotional temperature from asking her to stab someone to death, they gave her a white piece of paper and asked her to turn it from white to blue. She simply touched the paper, causing it to turn purple. Dr. Wensley noted, "We're still not exactly sure how SCP-2599 managed to change the color. High-speed cameras on a 200 million frames per second speed couldn't register how it happened. As soon as its finger touched the paper, it changed color. It doesn't even know how it did it." Yes, the dehumanizing use of "it" to refer to Zena Cho by Dr. Wensley makes us uncomfortable too. Don't call anyone "it" unless they ask you to, folks. Unless they're an evil clown who lives in the sewers and feeds on the fear of children. Oh, speaking of evil entities who fear on the fear of children, Dr. Wensley then continued to conduct tests on 14-year-old Zena Cho. In the next test, she was ordered to fly. She managed to levitate 5 meters off the ground before falling and breaking both legs in the process. Dr. Wensley decided to make lemonade out of the horrific lemon she'd been forcing on Zena and ordered her to heal herself. She managed to repair one of her legs, but failed trying to fix the second, describing the process as excruciatingly painful. Dr. Wensley, who'd grown sick of the complaining, ordered Zena to be happier. This caused a brief spike in dopamine and serotonin, before her moods then dropped down to lower than normal levels. Naturally, Dr. Wensley felt this was a good time to get homicidal again. 'Cause, sure, why not? In for a penny, in for a pound is practically an unofficial Foundation researcher motto at this point. Another D-class was brought in, and Zena was ordered to kill him. But before she could begin acting out her orders, a sniper outside the room shot the D-class in the head. How could Zena half fulfill her orders if the person she was meant to kill was already dead? That's when things got really strange. Zena placed a hand over his forehead and healed the man's wounds, bringing him back from the dead. However, in accordance with the half-fulfilled nature of Zena's abilities, he remained in a permanent vegetative state. It stands to reason that the exact same outcome would have happened if the D-class had been alive when the order was given. Having run this gamut of tests, resulting in as many questions as answers, Dr. Wensley was eager to give Zena a debrief interview, seeing what direct insights she could gain from within the mind of her new living science project. The interview began tense, despite Dr. Wensley's desire to put forth a non-threatening exterior. Zena, being a young woman, was understandably concerned that she'd been ripped away from her parents and dragged by men in black suits of tactical armor to an undisclosed location. There, scientists who refused to use her real name, instead just referring to her as SCP-2599 and by the pronoun "it," conducted tests on her. But given that she was physically unable to refuse any requests given, the researchers in attendance had good reason to believe that these interviews would be at least partially productive. Dr. Wensley then asked when her special abilities first manifested, to which Zena replied, "It was only a few weeks before I got here. Mom told me to clean up my room. She paused to shuffle here, overcome with emotion. Sorry, I miss her. I haven't talked to anybody else since I got here, and I'm really lonely all the time, and sorry, you probably don't care. Anyways, Mom told me to clean my room, and I was okay with it, but I just couldn't do it." When asked by Dr. Wensley if she couldn't finish cleaning her room or couldn't start, she said, "No, I started. I got mostly done, but then I just couldn't make myself do the rest. I wasn't even being lazy or anything, which my mom accused me of. I just couldn't do it. She got really mad, and then she yelled at me to go to my room. I got halfway, and I couldn't do it. Tragically, it had been Zena's own parents trying their best for her that had gotten her into this terrible situation. Her father had taken her to a doctor and explained her strange condition, and the doctor, who had contacts with the SCP Foundation and instructions to pass news of any anomalous symptoms up the chain of command, she'd been taken away to go to a private hospital. But no matter how much the researchers assured her that she'd be sent back home once they were sure she was healthy, she was starting to have serious doubts about that fact. But what Zena didn't know was that the testing went even deeper than she imagined. This very interview was just all building to a simple test under casual conditions. As Dr. Wensley turned to leave, she then said to Zena, making sure to phrase her question as a suggestion, not an order, "I would enjoy it if you cleaned up and stacked those papers on the table." Wanting to do anything that might let her leave this place, she obliged the seemingly good-natured doctor. However, as she did the task, she found, with great psychological distress, that she was physically unable to stack the last two pieces of paper onto the pile. This confirmed what the researchers had expected. Even orders phrased indirectly or surreptitiously activated both of Zena Cho's anomalous effects. Dr. Wensley appended a note on the test logs and interview transcripts saying, quote, "I believe that SCP-2599 is a unique case of a reality bender. It has been demonstrated that SCP-2599 can perform many anomalous feats and can, under certain orders, change aspects of reality while breaking the laws of physics. I think it's a specific type of reality bender that can only perform its feats under orders, recommending greater monitoring to prevent SCP-2599 from possibly progressing to the stage where it can change reality without orders. I'm also recommending that testing be ceased, since we don't know what could change its properties." However, the request to cease testing was ignored. After all, testing is what the Foundation does to its captured anomalies, no matter how dangerous the results, or in the case of Zena, no matter how deeply strange. Researchers wanted to test how Zena's abilities would cope with being given a paradoxical instruction, one that is literally logically impossible to complete to any degree. To that end, she was given the following instruction: "Do not lie when repeating these sentences. The following sentence is true. The previous sentence is false." And that's when things got weird. Given it was impossible to even tell a half-truth while repeating that sentence, Zena instead became immediately catatonic and released what seemed almost to be ambient reality warping radiation. The temperature in the area surrounding Zena rose by several degrees, and a variety of white rabbits suddenly and inexplicably manifested, each of them speaking fluent Korean, a language that Zena, as a second-generation Korean American, spoke. These rabbits spoke to the catatonic Zena in a reassuring tone, perhaps some kind of anomalous self-soothing method. This theory was reinforced by the ground becoming a cotton blanket. These effects only ceased when Dr. Wensley ordered Zena to sleep for 8 hours, meaning she slept for 4 hours. This whole fiasco seemed to vindicate her suggestion that testing should cease as soon as possible. But the Foundation's time working with Zena Cho was only just beginning. At this point, you're probably familiar with cases like SCP-105, Iris, and SCP-2241, Cameron the Crusader. Iris is a child with the anomalous ability to interact with any person or location via a photograph of them taken with her anomalous camera. And Cameron is a young boy with reality warping abilities who had grand aspirations of becoming a superhero one day. What both have in common is that more sinister elements of the Foundation decided to exploit their abilities, making them, in effect, child soldiers for the Foundation cause. And what's so frightening about the SCP Foundation is that with the stakes of their mission being so high, they can justify almost any action with the end of reaching that goal, no matter how many innocents get hurt along the way. Innocents like a 14-year-old girl named Zena Cho. Given that Zena can deliver any outcome you want, as long as you ask for double what you actually need, she's a valuable tool in the Foundation's arsenal, and yet another data point in the arguments of groups like the Serpent's Hand, that the Foundation can be every bit as awful as all the groups and anomalies that they claim to keep in check. Who watches the Watchmen, indeed. Now check out SCP-3082, Neverland's Lost Boys and Girls, or We Heard 6-7 Kid in the real SCP-067, Watch Until the End, for more.